Hi, my name is Markl, and I'm going to provide a brief overview of my paper, Algorithmic Bias and Language Variation. So in the paper, I make the point that speech and language technologies are a really important side of algorithmic oppression we need to pay attention to. I'm showing how speech and language technologies reproduce existing language ideologies and existing linguistic discrimination, looking in particular at a case study of commercial British English automatic speech recognition. And I then look at the harms of both biased and unbiased speech and language technologies. And then this work, I'm really building on this rich work on algorithmic oppression, which has shown that algorithmic systems reproduce structural oppression in society. A lot of this work has focused on domains like policing or hiring or banking. But I would argue that speech and language technologies are a particularly important type of technology to look at here, both because they're moving into high stakes contexts such as hiring, but also because they're so ubiquitous and so many of us will interact with them on a day-to-day basis that any ways that they reproduce structural oppression is going to have a lot of impact. And in the paper, I talk about this relationship between language and power and how this relates to language technologies. Arguing that language variation is situated within a social context and is tied to our identities, and that the kinds of beliefs that we have about language, including beliefs about what constitutes good or bad language, is re-entrenches existing power structures and is linked to existing power structures. So it is the language of the powerful, it is the speech of powerful groups that is also going to be considered prestigious rather than the speech of the marginalized groups. And this is really drawing on work from sociolinguistics and from linguistic anthropology in particular. And within this context, within this broader context, it is that we build speech and language technologies, which then may end up being biased and may end up reproducing this existing linguistic discrimination. And I showed us looking at automatic speech recognition in a British English context. So these are commercial systems provided by Amazon and Google, both of which perform best for speakers from the south of England, so Cambridge or London respectively, and those are very prestigious varieties of English in the UK. And they perform worst for speakers from the north of England and Northern Ireland, which are much less prestigious within the UK. And looking at the sort of harms, on the one hand, we obviously have less accessible voice use interfaces. We may have less accessible automatic captions for groups where we have higher error rates for speech and language technologies. And we also increasingly have these high stakes contexts, such as hiring or court transcription or medical transcription, where automatic speech recognition, for example, is used, where a higher error rate might have particularly bad consequences for already marginalized groups. And then lastly, I think it's very important to also consider that bias may not be the only problem, but that in fact the problem may lay with the tasks that we apply to speech recognition to, and that a focus on just fairness and bias and minimizing especially predictive bias could distract us from questioning the underlying task. And so with that, I hope that you're interested in this paper and that you will look at the full paper, which you can find at FACT 2022.